One small act of kindness, no expectations, no strings attached. But when she found out who the man really was, her entire world flipped upside down. It was another long shift at Melvin's diner, the kind of place where regulars didn't need to look at the menu, and the coffee pot never stopped brewing. The smell of bacon and fried eggs mixed with the scent of freshly mopped floors, and the hum of conversation filled the air. For Renee, the day had started before the sun came up. She'd been working here for years, pulling double shifts to keep up with the rising cost of rent, groceries, and, well, life. Bills stacked up faster than her tips, and exhaustion clung to her like the grease in the kitchen. She barely had time to take a breath before another order needed refilling. Coffee in one hand, checkbook in the other, she weaved through the small booths and bar stools like it was second nature. She had customers who barely acknowledged her existence, and others, mostly older folks, who treated her like their granddaughter, always slipping her life advice along with their tips. She didn't complain, though. Work was work, and Renee knew better than to expect life to cut her a break. But that's when she saw him. Near the corner of the diner, at a table by the window, sat an elderly man in a wheelchair. He was dressed in a simple brown jacket, a button-down shirt tucked neatly underneath. He looked like someone's grandfather, calm, quiet, minding his own business. His plate was nearly empty, just a few crumbs left from a sandwich and a drained cup of coffee. Renee hadn't noticed him come in, but that wasn't unusual. The lunch rush had been hectic. What caught her attention was the way he was struggling. His hands, rough and calloused, trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet in his lap. Something about it made her pause. He was moving slow, deliberate, like he was trying to buy time. She had seen it before. Customers who realized too late that they didn't have enough to cover their meal. The way they stalled, hoping for a way out that wouldn't cost them their dignity. Renee had been there herself. She could feel the tension in his fingers, the quiet panic in his eyes as he fumbled with the worn leather wallet. A few crumpled dollar bills, a handful of coins. It wasn't enough. And in that moment, before she even had time to think, she made a decision. She walked over with a soft smile. "Hey, sir, don't worry about it," she said, gently placing her hand on the check before he could. "I got this one." He looked up at her, his face shifting from surprise to something else, something deeper. "You don't have to do that," he murmured. His voice was rough, like it had carried too many stories over the years. "I know," she said simply, "but I want to." She slid the check away before he could protest again, and walked toward the register. She wasn't exactly in the position to be paying for other people's meals, but something told her this was the right thing to do. The man watched her the entire time. By the time she came back, his expression had changed. There was something heavy in his gaze, something unsaid. "You're a good person," he finally said. Renee chuckled, brushing it off. "Just a person who's had tough days too." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, creased piece of paper. "Take this," he said, handing it to her. "If you ever need anything." Renee hesitated before glancing down. It was just a phone number, scrawled in shaky handwriting. She smiled politely. "That's really kind, but you don't owe me anything." His lips pressed into a thin line, his eyes searching hers. And then, with a small nod, he tucked the wallet back into his lap. Renee didn't think much of it. She had covered meals before. It wasn't about the money. It was about treating people like people. So she crumpled the piece of paper in her pocket, finished wiping down the counter, and went right back to work. But what she didn't know was that this small act, this single moment, was about to change everything. The rest of Renee's shift passed like any other. Endless refills, plates scraping against tables, the occasional small talk with customers who wanted to tell her about their grandkids or the good old days. By the time she clocked out, her feet ached, and her apron smelled like syrup and coffee. The elderly man in the wheelchair had left a while ago, quietly rolling himself out the door. No dramatic farewell, no lingering glances, just a nod of thanks before he disappeared into the world beyond the diner's glass windows. Renee had almost forgotten about him by the time she walked into her tiny apartment later that night. She tossed her purse onto the couch, kicked off her shoes, and emptied her pockets onto the kitchen counter. Receipts, a couple of crumpled bills, a pen that had somehow made its way home with her. And then, there it was. That small, creased piece of paper. The old man's number. She stared at it for a moment, then shook her head, chuckling softly. People were funny. She could hear her grandmother's voice in her head. Baby, you never know when a small kindness will come back to you. Renee wasn't expecting anything to come of it. She wasn't one of those people who believed in signs or fate. Life had taught her that most things just were. You worked, you survived, and if you were lucky, you caught a few good moments in between. She dropped the paper onto the counter and didn't think about it again. But then, 3 days later, everything changed. It was a slow afternoon at the diner, the kind where time dragged and the smell of old grease felt heavier than usual. Renee had just refilled the napkin holders when she heard her manager, Carl, call her name. Renee, you got a minute? She glanced up from the counter. Carl wasn't the type to call employees into his office unless something was wrong, and judging by the look on his face, something was definitely up. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked toward him. Yeah, what's up? Carl scratched the back of his head. There's, someone here asking for you. Renee frowned. Who? Carl shrugged. Said he needed to speak with you personally. Her stomach tightened. She wasn't the kind of person who had people show up looking for her. Pushing through the door that led to the tiny back office, she was met with something she never expected. Sitting in the small office chair was a man in a navy blue suit, polished shoes, and a briefcase resting on his lap. He was well dressed, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged in a corporate meeting, not a run-down diner in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. He stood when she walked in. Miss Renee? Her eyes darted to Carl, who just held up his hands like he wanted no part of this. Renee crossed her arms. Who's asking? The man smiled, professional but not cold. My name is Michael Harrington. I represent Mr. Charles Bennett. She blinked. Who? Michael's smile didn't falter. The gentleman in the wheelchair, the one you helped a few days ago. Her stomach dropped. Oh, yeah, I remember him. Is he okay? Michael nodded. More than okay. He sent me here with something for you. Before she could ask another question, he unclicked the latches on his briefcase, pulled out an envelope, and held it out to her. Renee hesitated. This was weird. Really weird. I don't understand, she said slowly. Michael's expression softened. Mr. Bennett wanted to express his gratitude. He asked me to make sure you got this. Renee's fingers curled around the envelope as she took it from him. It was heavier than she expected, and when she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a check. A check with her name on it. A check for $25,000. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, certain she was seeing things. What? What is this? She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael folded his hands in front of him. Mr. Bennett wanted to thank you for your kindness. He believes in rewarding good people. Renee's heart pounded. This has to be a mistake. Michael shook his head. No mistake. Renee turned to Carl, half expecting him to say this was some kind of prank, but her boss looked just as stunned as she was. Her hands trembled as she set the check down on the desk. I can't take this. Michael didn't look surprised. That's what Mr. Bennett thought you'd say. He reached back into his briefcase, pulling out another document. This time it wasn't a check. It was a letter. He asked me to give you this as well. He hoped it would explain everything. Renee stared at the envelope like it might catch fire in her hands. The room felt too small, the air too thick. A part of her wanted to run. Because this didn't happen to people like her. She had spent her whole life working for every single dollar, scraping by, doing her best to keep her head above water. And now, out of nowhere, some man she barely knew was trying to hand her more money than she had ever seen in one place. None of it made sense. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She swallowed hard, gripping the envelope like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. And then, with a deep breath, she opened the letter. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to read. Renee's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind she imagined rich people used when they wrote checks with more zeros than she had ever seen in her bank account. Her eyes skimmed the first few words, and suddenly, it was like the rest of the room didn't exist. Dear Renee, I imagine you're feeling confused right now, maybe even suspicious. I don't blame you. You see, I wasn't always the man you saw sitting in that diner. There was a time when I had nothing. No home, no money, no family. Just a war-torn heart and the will to keep moving forward. Decades ago, I walked into a small restaurant, much like the one where you work. I was tired. I was hungry, and I had nothing to pay for the food I so desperately needed. But a waitress, someone just like you, helped me. She didn't ask for anything in return. She didn't judge me. She simply saw another human being in need and did what she could. That one act of kindness changed the trajectory of my life. Years later, when I finally found success, I promised myself that if I ever saw someone with that same kind of heart, I would do for them what she did for me. And that brings me to you, Renee. You didn't help me because you thought you'd get something in return. You did it because that's who you are. So here's what I want you to know. This check is just the beginning. I want to help you the way I was helped all those years ago. I want to give you opportunities that you deserve. Take the money. Use it. And when the time comes, pay it forward in your own way. With gratitude. Charles Bennett Renee stared at the words. Her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and something she couldn't name. She read the letter again and again. Her brain couldn't catch up with what her eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. She didn't deserve this. She wasn't special. She was just a waitress trying to get by, working long hours for people who barely remembered her name. And yet, here it was. Proof that one moment, one small act, had meant more than she ever could have imagined. She swallowed hard, pressing the letter against her chest like it could somehow steady the pounding in her heart. Michael, the man in the suit, was watching her closely. Are you okay? Renee forced a breath out, her hands gripping the edges of the letter like it might disappear. I don't know, she admitted. Her voice came out shaky. How am I supposed to accept this? Michael smiled, not unkindly. Mr. Bennett hoped you'd ask that, which is why he wanted me to tell you. This isn't charity. This is a thank you. Renee's throat tightened. Look, I understand this is a lot to process, Michael continued. No one expects you to make any decisions today. But just know this. This money, this opportunity, it's yours if you want it. She glanced at the check again. The numbers blurred together. Her whole life, she had been told that nothing came easy. That if she wanted something, she had to fight for it, grind for it, sacrifice for it. And now, out of nowhere, life was handing her something she never could have imagined. A way out. A fresh start. But could she take it? She wasn't sure. What she did know, though, was that her world had just been turned upside down, and things would never be the same again. Renee sat in that tiny office for what felt like forever, the letter gripped tightly in her hands. The words echoed in her mind over and over. This isn't charity. This is a thank you. She wanted to believe it. She really did. But something inside her couldn't accept that it was that simple. People didn't just give away money like this. Life didn't hand out miracles. She looked up at Michael, her voice quiet but firm. Why me? Michael tilted his head slightly. I asked him the same thing. Renee swallowed. And what did he say? Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He said he's been waiting a long time to find someone who reminded him of the person who helped him all those years ago. And when he met you, he knew. Renee let out a short, disbelieving laugh. That sounds ridiculous. Michael shrugged. Maybe, but Mr. Bennett doesn't think so, and neither do I. She looked down at the check again, the weight of it pressing down on her in a way she hadn't expected. $25,000. That was more money than she had seen in her entire life. It could change everything. She could finally pay off the medical bills from her mum's hospital stay. She could fix her car, the one that coughed and wheezed every time she turned the key. She could breathe for the first time in years. But there was something terrifying about it too, because if she accepted this, if she let herself believe that good things could happen to her, it meant she had to let go of the idea that the world was only cruel. And that was harder than it should have been. She took a shaky breath. What if I don't deserve it? Michael smiled gently. I think that's exactly why you do. Silence filled the room. Renee's fingers tightened around the letter. She could feel the weight of her entire life pressing down on this one moment, this one choice. She could walk away, pretend none of this had ever happened, go back to scrubbing tables and pouring coffee and wondering if things would ever get better. Or she could take the risk. Let herself believe, just this once, that kindness wasn't just something you gave. It was something you could receive too. She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. When she opened them again, she looked up at Michael, and then, finally, she spoke. What do I do next? Michael's smile widened. That's entirely up to you. But before she could even process what that meant, her phone rang. She flinched at the sudden sound, pulling it from her pocket with still shaky hands. Unknown number. Her heart pounded. For some reason, she already knew who it was. She hesitated for only a second before answering. Hello? The voice on the other end was warm, steady, and familiar. Miss Renee, the man said. I hope I'm not interrupting. Her breath caught. Mr. Bennett? A soft chuckle. I see Michael got to you. Renee exhaled sharply, running a hand over her face. Yeah, he did. Silence stretched between them for a moment. And then Charles Bennett spoke again. I meant what I said in that letter. Renee swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he replied. Just listen. And so she did. But what he said next, that was what truly left her speechless. Renee gripped the phone tighter, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Listen carefully, Miss Renee, Charles Bennett said, his voice steady but carrying something heavier this time. This isn't just about the money. Renee's mouth felt dry. Then what is it about? A pause, and then, it's about what you're going to do next. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Mr. Bennett, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with something like this. I've worked my whole life just to survive. I don't know how to be anything more than that. Another soft chuckle, but there was warmth behind it. That's what they want you to believe. Renee frowned. Who? The world, he said simply. The kind that tells people like you that you'll never be anything more than what you are now, that your hard work is all you'll ever have, that kindness is a duty, not something that comes back to you. Renee felt something sharp twist in her chest, because wasn't that exactly how life had been? "Do you know why I chose you?" Bennett continued before she could respond. "Because you didn't hesitate. You saw a man struggling and helped, not because you expected anything in return, but because it was the right thing to do." Renee swallowed hard. "I've spent years searching for someone like that," he went on. "And when I found you, I knew. This was my chance to do for someone else what was once done for me." Her fingers curled around the edge of the desk. "I don't know if I can accept this." "Then don't," he said smoothly. "But I'll tell you what, if you won't take it for yourself, take it for the people who need someone like you." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm not just offering you money, Renee," he said. "I'm offering you an opportunity, a way out, a chance to change your story, and maybe one day help others change theirs too." Renee's mind was spinning. "You have a choice," Bennett continued. "You can take the check, pay off some bills, and keep doing what you've always done. Or," his voice softened, "you can take a step toward something bigger." She hesitated. "Like what?" There was a beat of silence before he answered. "Like education," he said. "Like starting fresh. Like chasing the things you never thought were possible because life convinced you they weren't meant for you." Renee's breath caught, because there was something there, a dream she had buried so deep that she almost didn't recognize it anymore. She had wanted to go to school, to do something more. But life had other plans, bills, responsibilities, reality. And now a man she barely knew was telling her she could rewrite her story. I don't know if I can," she admitted. "I know," Bennett said. "That's why I'm telling you. You don't have to do it alone." A lump formed in her throat. "I've already set things in motion," he continued. "If you want it, there's a full scholarship waiting for you. A fresh start. A way to do something for yourself for the first time in your life." Renee's head spun. "A scholarship?" Bennett chuckled. "You didn't think I was just going to throw money at you and disappear, did you?" She let out a shaky laugh, tears burning the back of her eyes. I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything yet," he said. "Just think about it." She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Okay." "Good," he said. "I'll be in touch." And then, just like that, the line went dead. Renee stared at the phone in her hand, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Her whole life, she had been told that people like her didn't get chances like this. That you worked, you survived, and you didn't dream too big because it only led to disappointment. But now she had a choice. She could stay where she was, in the safety of what she had always known. Or she could take the leap, start fresh, and maybe, just maybe, prove that kindness had the power to change not just one life, but many. She took a deep breath, feeling something new settle inside her. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope. And this time, she wasn't going to let it slip away. If this story moved you, remember this: kindness is never wasted. Even the smallest act can create a change you never see coming. So the next time you have the chance to help someone, don't hesitate. Because you never know. It might just change your life too. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support helps us keep bringing you content that inspires and makes a difference. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.